C'est bon? You have it? Not yet. Okay. Merci beaucoup. On fera avec les moyens du bord en attendant que la tradition nous rejoigne. Donc, j'indiquais tantôt que dans le Suicide Event, nous allons beaucoup plus aller en profondeur sur les questions de normes et de méthodes pour le développement des projets de crédit carbone. Et de manière spécifique, nous allons nous interroger sur l'apport des données d'observation de la Terre dans la génération des projets de crédit carbone, notamment au niveau des mangroves. Également, les défis scientifiques dans le processus de développement de projets carbone seront abordés. Je suis Christophe Deguenon, directeur de l'environnement et des ressources en eau à la commission de l'UEMOA, et je vais faciliter cette session qui, pour introduire nos discussions, verra trois communications passées. La première communication sera faite par M. Morten Pedersen, que j'invite à me rejoindre. Il est expert de la Banque mondiale sur les questions de carbone bleu, qui a une longue expérience sur la thématique et qui va nous donner un aperçu sur les projets de carbone bleu en Afrique de l'Ouest, ainsi que sur les normes et méthodes dans la matière. À la suite de M. Morten, nous aurons une deuxième présentation de Célio, qui est membre de l'équipe scientifique de la NASA, sur sa présentation donc, qui portera sur des aires protégées côtières et forestières d'Afrique de la Terre. Nous aurons Brian, qui nous rejoint à l'instant, directrice de West, qui va nous présenter une expérience de la Guinée-Bissau, une expérience pilote de la Guinée-Bissau sur le développement de projets de crédit bleu, carbone bleu. Donc, sans plus tarder, je vais demander à Morten de nous faire la première présentation. Et à la suite de toutes les présentations, il y aura une question pour introduire le débat. Ensuite, la parole sera donnée au public pour poser des questions et on donnera l'occasion aux panélistes de répondre à ces questions-là. Donc, Morten, for your presentation, please.
Yeah, hello and good morning, everybody. And I'm Morten Pedersen from representing the World Bank. And so I will give a little bit overview of the blue carbon in West Africa. I will look especially into the methodologies, what have been done before. And then, of course, also to look into some future trends we should be aware of when we are developing carbon projects, and then some recommendations for a way forward. What this slide, it is just mentioning let's say, our key priority areas, and we see here that have on the top what is IPPC recognized. It's the mangrove, seagrass, and the salt marshes. So we will have a focus on this. It's also the most important for the carbon market, or at least the carbon pools we have in the area. What I have done on this slide, can I just have it on full screen here? Yeah, but on mine. I also have to see what it is. It's new to me. So this is actually an overview of the projects I think I have recognized under development in West Africa. And if we take Mauritania, I don't see any carbon projects under development. But it's also like, how do we evaluate this? I said the VCS, the first one, it's the voluntary carbon standard on the Vera. And the second one, I put the Plan Vivo and Gold Standard together because it's 0 for all of them. And then I have taken one that is on the initial stage. And it is here where we have said, what do we have of projects where companies have said, we are doing this, but they have not reached the stage of being recognized the public in the registers yet. And so this list is larger than this because it's not everything that are shared. But what we also see it is that for now, in the entire West Africa, we have 2 blue carbon projects that have reached the stage of registration by a standard. We have had already the presentation from the Guinea-Bissau earlier today, registered long time ago. Then we have a project with a mangrove restoration called the Livelihood Project in Senegal. That's the 2 projects that have reached registration. We have in Senegal, there's actually a lot of projects, but they are also in the same river system. So there's a lot of competition and attention point to this, in my view. Gambia have one large project. It's unique because it's national scale for mangrove restoration. And we can see also on Guinea-Bissau, there's one project under development. It is the one coordinated by Ocean, Blue Seeds, and so on. It's the future project, but it's on the way. And then we have different projects from Blue Forest and West African Blue and Eco Benin are also the driver in one project. So what we see here, it is that all of them that are a priority is actually mangrove. Seagrass, we are all aware that there is a huge amount of seagrass, especially in Mauritania. What I have found out it is that what is published is there's also some in Senegal, but clear the majority is in Mauritania. But we also noticed that seagrass was not mentioned on the list among the buyers for the carbon market. And we have to think about it if you have the seagrass, there is only one real methodology in the carbon market right now that are working with seagrass. I've been using it also in the Danish context. And it is not optimal for seagrass. And we come in the baseline setting, we come in the calculation, we come in the monitoring, but we also have this that it have to be degrading significantly to claim additionality, to maintain and keep an area that is not degrading, is not really fitting for the carbon market. So what we see it is that I have not seen any special interest from the carbon market to go into by private investors to go into the seagrass areas. So what we have been thinking of it is that what is really good for the if we look at the seagrass, maybe the attention should be that say we have a huge carbon pool, but the driver for attracting financing should be like the biodiversity and social benefits, mainly biodiversity. I will come back to one point more on the next slide. Here I have made a comparison of the different standards that can be used in the carbon market. And here the focus is mangrove. I will have a comment later. So we have 4 standards. What I see is possible to work with if we stand for now. We see that when I mention size here, it's a number of projects. So all the mangrove projects, many of them globally, are really developed under the Vera standard. Gold standard have a standard, but it's not used. And then Carbono, it's still a small standard, but they don't have started the mangrove project yet. So we have, for 3 of them, I could say we have existing standards that can be used for mangrove, and Carbono is under development. In West Africa, we can see that the 2 projects that have been approved for now, it is under the Vera standard. And if I look at the complexity of the standard, it is really high in Vera and in gold standard. It's medium in Plan Vivo. It's more easy to do there. It's not so rigid. So, and then we don't know yet for Carbono because it's under development. What is really important when we do for teak plantation in Ghana. So it can work here. And yeah. Then what is also, so that's here maybe one, then I have of course made attention to the different standards, and it can also be written on the homepage. It is, what about seagrass? And in general, it said, we will work on it when we have finalized the mangrove standards. First mangrove, because there's a market, and then seagrass on a later stage. What we also have is more attention is coming to when we make the standards, to also to have attention to other things than the carbon. And then for many of us that are making the carbon projects, the Vera standards, we also...
les projets de carbone.
Standard for sustainable development standard. You can do this alone, only with them, or you can use it together with the carbon standard. What I see on the carbon market, on the big scale, we have this Integrity Council of the voluntary carbon market. They are trying to give us some guidance of what to, and all the players are into this, and we focus to be part of it. When I look at it with the governments, the transparency, tracking, additionality, permanence, and so on, we are okay with the way we are using it already, standards we are using. But what we should have more attention to in the future, if we should have that, the big ICVCM as guidance for us, it is that we should have more attention to the social and environmental impact. And when we have people working for us, more attention to this. But what is the most important here, it is we are doing it, but we have to document it. That's the key word here. What I have, this slide is about money. I take this in as I have seen, and I have few points that are important in this cycle. It is the carbon project development cost until registered by the standard. I mentioned 250,000 to 250,000. It's a lot of money because it's up one just to make the carbon project. And it is therefore, we will have the mindset, or could have the mindset, why don't we just do one in one country and see if it can work? We saw the Senegal case, four ongoing projects working in the same area, but they actually have the same transaction cost to develop the carbon project. Can we do it in one? I think later we will illustrate that this can be done for the one covering and I think that's a unique model on even in a global scale to have this approach. What I also would like to see it is that I have put up a price for carbon credits here with 15, but the carbon credit price, it is, can you have something to pay up front? Then if they are paying it up front, it will of course be a lower price. But what I see typically in West Africa for now, it is a lot of donor funding is paid to develop mangrove restoration, but they don't include the carbon component in the national program. So the country is simply by planting this mangrove, they are also not getting it's some mindset there that should be evaluated. Then what I'm coming from outside, and when I why to choose West Africa? I choose to work in West Africa because nobody else were working here. It means there was a market to work on. I was in the private sector. So one thing people are looking for, it is that countries don't have a setup for the blue carbon. And it is in the infrastructure to get the approvals. How do you dare to go in? And then we have to say that higher risk to invest in West Africa compared to many other places, like in Asia and even East. So that's an attention point. Then I said, can handle this donor fund for restoration, but for now it's implemented mainly without some comments that are not really West Africa specific. We see the voluntary carbon market is stressed and underdeveloped, but it can also be positive because we saw that the mangrove methodologies are under development. There's been mentioned many times limited capacity. I'm not sure what I 100% understand of this, but for me it is that the people and the players on the market can take the time to really understand the methodologies that are for this. And the importance of also making it national, like a regional or Ramsar region, because if we just look at the country, and if somebody is saying, I want to make a carbon project on the Ramsar side, mangrove restoration, okay, do it. They are developing it. But what about the village outside the Ramsar area? What will they get for the mangrove restoration? They will maybe get nothing, because if we develop the project with the Ramsar side, the side outside is not attractive on the market. Who will use $250,000 to develop a project for maybe only 500 hectares? Just as an example. What we have been thinking of, so what we are doing in the World Bank, we are thinking also, we call it the blue carbon perspectives. And some of the things we want to highlight, it is that maybe we should think about make scale restoration of mangrove or conservation. I think the model for all of us, but Peter also highlighted in his presentation, it was that the way it is considered in they had $5 money from potential buyer to make it national scale. Okay, so we take the last few words on this one. Does it work? No, so we go back to the other one. Or doesn't work. Does it work? Does this work? And now we close this one also. It's good now. Yeah. So I will speak in the mic with or without the mic. So and then national scale restoration of mangrove, good thing. And then what is mentioned here, improve the national implementation framework. It is, but also what the World Bank had mentioned, this blue carbon readiness framework. It is also an appetizer for what I will talk about in the third side event today. It's a way that has been used in Ghana, and there are allocated funding for this also in Guinea-Bissau. I put in the seagrass action, and I would like to have the discussion whether it's the best way to go on the carbon market, or we should focus on the more on the biodiversity and social side, and see if this can be more attractive. Then what I see, what we need to do, it is we have to find a way to present the different methodologies that is on the market if we want to use it. Because if the countries are tying themselves in for a carbon credit for 25 years, and we have a foreign standard we are following, it's a huge impact for the country. And it is actually interesting also because even under the same standard, like the Vera, you can have deviation of the number of carbon credits up to 40%, how you do the calculations and so on. And this is, how can you report this in your NDC and explain this? So there have to be a really stronger control, and the countries have to say, what do we want? Then I mentioned the livelihood and safeguard, mainly social integrity. We all say that the communities don't get that much money, but I think in general, we are on a relatively good track for 80% of the projects I have seen. It's a personal view. But it have to be stronger and documented and agreed, and these benefit sharing agreements have to be aligned and the country have to approve them. So, thank you for this. And then we are 3 persons here at the forum. So Nicolas standing there, Manon is maybe here, and she is fighting with this, and then I'm here. So if you want to discuss anything, have a meeting and so on, please just approach us. And then, of course, more information, just send me an email. Thank you. This one or this one? We try this one first.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. Ça marche? Non? Allô? Bon, d'accord. Finalement, merci. Décidément. On se fait partout. Décidément. Ok, merci Nicolas pour l'appui. Alors merci Morton pour cette présentation. Je pense qu'il nous a donné un peu un aperçu sur les méthodes qui sont utilisées, avec la comparaison que vous avez eu à faire sur les différentes méthodes, les différentes organisations de certification. Je pense que ça a mis en exergue les points d'attention dans le développement des projets. Vous avez aussi, entre autres, évoqué le coût de transaction dans le développement des projets et aussi le déficit de capitalisation parfois. Vous avez cité le cas du Sénégal, où il y a plusieurs projets qui sont développés dans une même zone, alors qu'il n'y a pas forcément des échanges d'expérience qui permettent un peu de gagner en termes de coût de transaction dans le développement. Donc, je voudrais inviter Célio, dans cette perspective-là, peut-être que les données d'observation de la Terre peuvent être utiles, et comment on peut les utiliser en développant donc, des projets carbone. Ah, c'est trop rapide. OK. D'accord. Merci. J'en ai fini d'ailleurs. Donc, Célio, pour nous les données d'observation de la Terre et comment elles peuvent être utiles dans le développement des projets de crédit carbone.
Está funcionando isso? Sim. Obrigado, Christophe. Isso funciona? Está funcionando? Vocês me escutam? Não escutam? Tu está a escutar? Ok. Eu vou falar alto, então, para ver se ajuda. Antes de começar, eu gostaria de dizer que esses slides estão disponíveis em português e inglês, através do código QR, e também há pendrives ali. Fiquem à vontade para pegar um, se tiverem interesse. Então, meu nome é Célio de Souza, eu sou um pesquisador no Laboratório de Ciência da Biosfera da NASA. O meu foco principal é o mapeamento do uso e cobertura da Terra. E hoje eu vou falar um pouquinho a respeito do projeto que nós estamos fazendo de monitoramento e mapeamento de áreas protegidas na África Ocidental. Só um pouco de contexto, eu faço parte de um grupo chamado Grupo de Ciência dos Mangás. Ele é liderado pela doutora Lola Fatoimbo, que é um nome muito reconhecido em ciência dos mangás a nível global. E o nosso foco primordial lá é o uso de sensoramento remoto e imagem de satélite em diversas áreas, como, por exemplo, o mapeamento do uso e cobertura da Terra a níveis nacionais. Eu vou falar um pouquinho do exemplo que fizemos para a Libéria, o Gabão, a Botsuana, a Nigéria e a Guiné. Nós também mapeamos áreas protegidas na África Ocidental, que é esse projeto que eu vou falar hoje também. Há alguns de nós que estamos focados em mapeamento de biomassa, com dados de radar, de lidar. Também estimamos o habitat de gramíneas marinhas e pântanos salgados. Nós também trabalhamos com a determinação de perda e ganho de mangás e gramíneas marinhas a níveis globais, dentre outros usos. Se tiverem interesse, por favor, visitem nosso website. Lá tem mais descrito detalhadamente o que nós trabalhamos. Mas no meu contexto aqui, no meu caso específico, eu sou especializado em mapeamento do uso e cobertura da Terra. O meu primeiro projeto foi um projeto feito em parceria com a Conservation International, que é uma parceria que foi assinada em 2018, e o objetivo dessa parceria com a NASA foi desenvolver uma metodologia replicável e de baixo custo de mapeamento de uso e cobertura da Terra e ecossistemas para países membros da Declaração de Gaborone para a Sustentabilidade na África. E nós desenvolvemos essa metodologia, nós publicamos, se também tiverem interesse, podem acessar com o código QR mais tarde. E desde então temos usado essa metodologia de mapeamento de uso e cobertura do solo para outros países e outras regiões do continente africano. Mas aqui só um pouquinho a respeito, eu estou a falar aqui de mapeamento do uso e cobertura, nem todo mundo pode estar ciente do que é. Bem brevemente, mapeamento do uso e cobertura da Terra é o processo de categorização das características físicas da superfície da Terra, né? Como, por exemplo, corpos d'água, áreas de florestas, mangás, e agricultura, urbanização, etc. Nós, a maioria de todos aqui, viemos de avião para Bissau. Então, se olharmos pela janela, conseguimos identificar essas diferentes características da superfície da Terra, como corpos d'água, conseguimos ver florestas, algumas vezes agricultura e urbanização. Mas e se quisermos fazer um mapa a nível regional, ou a nível nacional, ou até a nível global? Temos que usar imagens de satélite. E é aí que a NASA entra. Nesse exato momento, há dezenas, eu acredito que até centenas de sensores orbitando o nosso planeta, nesse exato momento, coletando dados. E muitos deles, 99% deles, foram projetados e lançados ao espaço pela NASA. E o que a gente tem que ressaltar aqui é o Landsat. O Landsat está em órbita desde 1984, coletando dados a cada 16 dias. Então, é um sensor utilizado para mapeamento do uso e cobertura da Terra em vários lugares do planeta. Então, ele é muito utilizado. E o Landsat, ele captura imagens espectrais dessas características da superfície da Terra, como eu disse, e nós usamos algoritmos de classificação especiais para transformar essas assinaturas espectrais em classes de uso e cobertura do solo. Eu não vou entrar muito em detalhe na parte técnica, mas é mais ou menos assim o que acontece. O que me traz para os exemplos de projetos que nós trabalhamos em países da África, com parceiros aqui, em projetos passados. O primeiro é a Libéria. Não se preocupe com a quantidade de informação desse slide, mas a mensagem que eu quero passar com ele, que a Libéria foi o primeiro país onde nós aplicamos essa metodologia de mapeamento do uso e cobertura, para criar um mapa de uso e cobertura e também de ecossistemas, que é um passo à frente. de uso e cobertura. Esse mapa é de 30 metros de resolução, tem 22 classes de ecossistema, mas a mensagem importante desse slide e da Libéria como um exemplo é que o governo da Libéria adotou oficialmente esse mapa de ecossistemas como uma base para fazer contabilidade de capital natural e valoração de serviços ecossistêmicos no país. Então, foi um exemplo muito forte para a gente e para o governo da Libéria também. Aos códigos QR, se tiverem interesse em ler a respeito de uma cobertura jornalística dessa adoção, e também se quiserem explorar os mapas mais tarde. Nós também trabalhamos com a Guiné, num outro projeto com o Banco Mundial, onde também fizemos um mapeamento do uso e cobertura da terra a nível nacional. Nós também fizemos um mapeamento da cobertura florestal anual de 2014 até 2020, e também mapeamos anualmente, de 1996 a 2020, as províncias costeiras da Guiné. E com base nessas informações, nós temos 25 anos de mapas de uso e cobertura, nós podemos ver a dinâmica dessas classes, como, por exemplo, a perda de florestas de mangais ao redor da capital Conakry, por causa do plantio de arroz. E também esse exemplo da Guiné foi um exemplo muito importante, porque esses dados também foram utilizados para ajudar e auxiliar no planeamento inicial de alguns parques nacionais no país, e também para relatórios internos nacionais. Também trabalhamos em outros países, como o Gabão, o Senegal, Botsuana e a Nigéria, também fazendo esse mapeamento de uso e cobertura. Para a Nigéria, nós temos dois pontos no tempo, mas o que é importante ressaltar aqui, que eu esqueci de falar, para todos esses países, nós tivemos apoio local, de agências locais e instituições locais, e também podemos fazer a visita desse país para coletar dados de campo, que também é muito importante na construção e desenvolvimento desses mapas de uso e cobertura. Então, nós visitamos a Agência Nacional de Observação Especial do Gabão, o AGOS. Nós também tivemos a colaboração de pesquisadores deles que vieram nos visitar nos Estados Unidos, e nós trocamos essa experiência de mapeamento. Então, é muito importante essa integração de todas as instituições nesses projetos. Bom, antes de tocar a falar da importância de mapeamento, que nós fizemos mapeamento, só para dizer que nós temos experiência em fazer um dos primeiros projetos de carbono azul, que é identificar onde esses ecossistemas se encontram e qual estado que eles se encontram, em termos de degradação. Então, esses mapas são muito importantes, porque oferecem a localização precisa desses ecossistemas, e também serve, obviamente, como temos a extensão, serve como baseline para a estimativa de carbono. E quando fizemos um mapeamento anual, esses mapas são muito importantes para serem utilizados na verificação e monitoramento da mudança desses ecossistemas de carbono azul ao longo do tempo, o que é muito importante para esses projetos. O que me traz para o projeto atual que eu estou trabalhando hoje, que é o monitoramento e mapeamento do uso e cobertura da terra para áreas protegidas costeiras marinhas na África Ocidental. Também feito por um diverso grupo de pesquisadores, liderado pela doutora Lola Fatoimbo, também. Nós temos colaboradores aqui na África, temos cientistas e técnicos que são capacitados e com muita experiência em mapeamento de biomassa, com dados de laser e radar. E também temos o times de usuários finais, que trabalhamos com muita proximidade, que muitos deles aqui estão nessa sessão e neste fórum. Só uma visão geral do projeto em si. O nosso objetivo com esse projeto em específico é fazer a integração desses dados de sensoramento remoto, que nós temos muita experiência, na gestão efetiva de áreas de proteção no oeste africano. Nós também pretendemos produzir mapas históricos e atuais de ganho, perda e degradação dos ecossistemas, principalmente florestas de mangais e florestas terrestres. E, com base nessa informação, determinar as áreas que são possíveis para restauração, o que é muito importante também. E obviamente, a estimar o carbono, a biomassa acima do solo e fazer a estimativa de sequestro e emissão dessas áreas protegidas. Nós temos um time grande de usuários finais, a UCN, por exemplo, nós temos a African Nature Investors, nós temos a Agência Nacional de Observação Espacial do Gabão, Blue Seeds e o Banco Mundial. Então, é um grupo bem diverso de usuários finais. E o projeto tem duração mais ou menos de 4 anos, começamos em outubro do ano passado, e vamos até meados de 2027. Então, estamos nos estágios iniciais desse projeto, mas nós já temos alguns resultados para mostrar. Só falando um pouco do escopo geográfico, eu falei que vamos focar nas áreas protegidas marinhas da África Ocidental e também algumas da África Central. Então, nós estamos falando de mais de 250 áreas protegidas por mais de 15 países. Então, uma área muito grande que nós vamos focar. E há um foco especial em áreas marinhas protegidas, que foi requisitado pelo IUCN e o WACA Project. Nós vamos focar nessas áreas marinhas ao longo da costa e uma área buffer de 20 quilômetros ao redor dessas áreas, onde nós vamos fazer um mapeamento do uso e cobertura. E também há requisições especiais de alguns usuários finais para incluir áreas protegidas terrestres, como, por exemplo, o Parque Nacional do Gashaka-Gumti, na Nigéria, que é de grande importância para um dos nossos usuários finais, que é o African Nature Investors. Bom, só para falar, então, um pouquinho dos resultados que temos desde de outubro até então, nós fizemos um mapeamento, nesse momento, nós temos o resultado do mapeamento para 2023, de todas essas áreas marinhas protegidas da África Ocidental. E não sei se vocês conseguem perceber ali, através desses mapas, nós podemos observar no gráfico de barras, em roxo, nós temos o ranking da porcentagem total de áreas de mangás em relação à área total de áreas protegidas por país. Então, esse tipo de informação já é possível ser obtida com esse mapa de 2023. Os gráficos circulares mostram a proporção do uso e cobertura da terra, diferentes classes para cada país, em relação à área protegida. Isso é um exemplo da Guiné-Bissau, que, com base nas áreas que nós selecionamos para esse estudo, é o segundo país com maior extensão de área protegida, atrás somente do Gabão. E a Guiné, com base nessa análise, tem 10% dessas áreas são cobertas por florestas de mangás. E esse mapa vai ser utilizado como mapa base para uma metodologia de classificação em lot, que se chama Land Trender, que nos permite mapear outros anos no passado. Então, não vamos ter apenas o ano de 2023, vamos ter anos até o ano 2000 anualmente. E esse tipo de informação, como eu já mencionei, nos permite verificar áreas potenciais de restauração de mangás, por exemplo, com base no tipo de conversão. Por exemplo, se considerarmos a conversão de mangás para áreas de lodaçais, essas áreas têm maior potencial de restauração no futuro do que áreas que foram transformadas em áreas de urbanização ou agricultura, como é o caso da Guiné. Nós fizemos uma análise inicial com dados globais, esses dados de uso e cobertura para florestas terrestres e mangás já existe, feito por outras equipes, mas a nível global. Então, nós compilamos todas essas informações para cada país, em termos de extensão desses ecossistemas, tanto a nível nacional quanto a nível de áreas protegidas. E só um exemplo para a Guiné-Bissau, com base nesses dados globais, a Guiné-Bissau, dentre o ano de 2000 e 2020, perdeu áreas de mangás e florestas em áreas protegidas, que foi a conclusão que tivemos com base nesses dados globais. Portanto, nós tentamos fazer a nossa própria análise usando a nossa própria metodologia para a Guiné-Bissau, usando os nossos dados, nossas metodologias. Eu não sei se conseguem perceber bem na tela, mas são imagens Landsat ali na esquerda. Em laranja escuro são as áreas de florestas de mangás, e o marrom castanho escuro são áreas de lodaçais. Então, entre 2000 e 2022, essas áreas de lodaçais se transformaram em áreas de florestas de mangás, o que não foi captado pelos dados globais. E aqui embaixo em verde são só o resumo das áreas onde houve o acréscimo de áreas de mangás. Essa área é a área do Parque Nacional do Rio Cacheu, no norte, onde há muitos mangás, obviamente, mas dentre esses anos de 2000 e 2022, houve o acréscimo de áreas de mangás, o que não foi capturado pelos dados globais. Só para fazer a comparação, que esses dados globais nós temos que ter muito cuidado em usar algumas vezes, por não ser tão precisos para determinadas áreas, e isso é muito importante para projetos de carbono azul, onde nós temos que ter a classificação precisa desses ecossistemas. Nós também criamos um mapa de uso e cobertura para 2023 para Guiné-Bissau. Nós também usamos aquela classificação em lote, que eu mencionei, chamada Land Trender, que foi utilizado para criar os mapas anuais até 2000. Então, nós temos 23 anos de mapas de uso e cobertura a nível nacional para Guiné-Bissau. E aqui só uma animação onde vocês podem ver, ao longo do tempo, o crescimento de Bissau, ali em vermelho. Também conseguimos ver em Bissora, no norte, o aparecimento da cidade ao longo do tempo. E também o crescimento de áreas de agricultura ao redor do Bissau, também em laranja. Então, só para dizer que nós, neste momento do nosso projeto, nós temos esse dado para Guiné-Bissau. Nós estamos no processo de compilação dos valores de extensão para cada ecossistema, para cada ano. Só para dizer que nós temos esses mapas. Bom, e a mensagem final que eu quero dizer a respeito disso, inclusive nesta sessão de carbono azul, é a importância de se focar em produtos precisos e confiáveis. Porque carbono azul precisa de saber da extensão desses ecossistemas para se criar projetos. E, com base no nosso grupo, nós podemos aproveitar a capacidade da NASA e a experiência como instituição e como grupo em processar esses dados e criar essas informações, que são informações muito requisitadas pelos nossos usuários finais, para estabelecer projetos de carbono azul. Eu acho que eu já estou no meu tempo. Obrigado. Se tiverem questões, por favor.
Merci beaucoup, Célio, pour cette présentation. Je pense que sans rentrer dans les considérations techniques et pratiques, vous avez quand même, à travers des exemples précis, démontré comment les données de suivi de la Terre peuvent être utiles, notamment pour la planification, le suivi de l'occupation de la Terre et des écosystèmes. Et dans bien évidemment, vous avez mis en exergue le défi de la précision de ces données-là, qui demeure parce que le carbone bleu nécessite d'avoir des données précises. Cela n'enlève rien du tout à l'utilité de ces données pour suivre ces écosystèmes. Et dans votre développement, vous avez cité plusieurs fois la Guinée-Bissau. Je pense que nous allons, avec Tania, regarder un peu au niveau de la Guinée-Bissau ce qui se passe concrètement sur le terrain en termes de développement de projets carbone. Donc, Tania, come on.
While it's loading, I just want to say good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the organizers of the session for inviting me here to speak. I'm actually going to be speaking about our project in Sierra Leone today a little bit, as well as how we create more accurate models and maps so we can understand deforestation better within that region. It's okay. So good. So yeah, so as was mentioned, my name is Tanya Bryan, and I work for an organization called West Africa Blue. And I thought I'd start this afternoon by explaining a little bit about our project in Sierra Leone, and then go into understanding a little bit more about how we create these models. So West Africa Blue is a West Africa Blue is a developer of high-integrity, community-centric blue carbon projects within West and Central Africa. We focus on restoration and conservation projects. We partner with communities and government, and we ensure that there is transparent and equitable benefit sharing mechanisms in place for all of our projects. So although our flagship project, our main project is in Sierra Leone, we also have active projects in Cameroon and in Guinea as well. And we have other projects that are in more earlier stages that you can see up there. We've been working in the communities in Sierra Leone for almost 15 years now, starting back in 2009, engaging the communities around ecotourism, and then supporting them through education and building of schools, along with support during Ebola with food drops, as well as more recently around conservation and environmental issues. And this relationship with the communities resulted in an invitation to a meeting in 2021 from the Banth and Mayamba chiefdoms. And they invited West Africa Blue to a meeting to say, basically, what can we do about the environment? You know, we see our mangroves are under threat. What can we do? And that meeting resulted in an MOU being signed between West Africa Blue, Ministry of Environment, 11 chiefdoms, so 8 more came on board after the initial meeting. Section chiefs, village chiefs, a number of community members all signed this MOU in support of the work going forward. And so from that, the Blue Carbon Project in Sierra Leone was born. Since then, we began to engage with a number of partners, both technical, governmental, and financial partners. 3 of the main ones that we work with are Green Collar, which is an Australian developer supporting us around better understanding the Vera methodology, which, as you heard from Morton, is sometimes a little bit complicated. Namity, which is an organization that comes out of Sierra Leone but is also now global. They are an environmental justice organization, and they're advising us on community engagement. And the Conservation of Sierra Leone, the Conservation Society of Sierra Leone is supporting us with our biodiversity work. So we've also engaged with a number of ministry partners from the government. You can see quite a few. And then a number of international partners as well, supporting us with technical support as well as financial support. So the project that I'll be speaking about today is here. It's in the southern part of Sierra Leone, so you can see Freetown up at the top. And then this is kind of the Sherbro River estuary area, with Banth being down close to the bottom. The total project area is about 74,000 hectares, with about 2,000 of those being restoration, although possibly slightly more. It covers 11 chiefdoms and will have a 50-year crediting period starting of this year. And the project area itself has been broken up into 4 project areas, just due to implementation timelines. And so the project area that I'll be speaking about is the Sherbro Island, which is the main island on the bottom. So that's the area that we're focused on right now. So within this area, there are a number of threats to the mangroves that makes it a suitable area for a blue carbon project. So the first one that we'll talk about is just mangroves being actively used for fuel, for cooking, and for smoking. And you can see here on the left, this is a traditional smoker, or a traditional banda. And you can see it's just open, the fish is being smoked on top. It's relatively inefficient in terms of wood use. Up at the top, you can see the piles of mangrove wood that have been cut and collected, which we use for cook stoves, and you can see the degradation happening down below. Also, the typical form of cooking within our region and within our communities is a 3-stone fire. So it's 3 stones with a pot placed on top of it, and a very open fire. So again, extremely inefficient, using a considerable amount of wood. So that's one of the major threats that is occurring within our region. Another threat is just mangrove wood being used for construction. You can see some of the local villages using it. They also use it for scaffolding as they build other types of concrete houses as well. They also cut mangrove wood and then move it off to some of the larger communities where, again, it's used for construction material. And mangroves are under threat due to conservation of rice. And I think we heard about this in some of the other talks earlier today in the plenary. So the mangroves are cut down for the communities to be able to grow rice. So based on this and understanding the threats, and in discussion with the communities that we work with, West Africa Blue has come up with a theory of change that involves a number of project activities. And one of the initial project activity that we've been doing is improved cook stoves. And this is being done in conjunction and in discussion with our communities. So this is a locally designed cook stove that that we worked on with our communities based on their needs and understanding how they cook and what they need. And so it is built by our communities. It's made with local mud bricks that the communities can make themselves. It is designed as needed by the different families. So this one has a space for one large pot and one small pot. Other families have space for two large pots, possibly three, depending on the size of their family. And you can see that the firebox down at the bottom is a very small hole. And on the other picture, you can see it's small amounts of wood that get put in there, so it makes it incredibly efficient. It makes it a lot safer. There's no tipping of the pots. And the communities can not only build them themselves, but they can also repair them themselves. So when they crack, there's no need to call anybody or go to a community. They can just fix them themselves. And so the result of this cook stove has been about a 64% decrease in amount of mangrove wood that has been used on an average basis for the family. So that is a win both for mangroves, but also for families who now need to spend less money on the amount of wood that they're collecting. So our second project activity that we've been active in is the creation of woodlots. And so we've been creating woodlots for both alternative sources of fuel as well as alternative sources of income. And so here we're planting a number of different species. Cashew is a main one, but we're also planting Malina, Moringa, and Tamarind as well at the community's request. So, and the third project activity that we've been active in is the establishment of oyster racks. So as I think it was mentioned earlier today, the harvesting of oysters is a very common practice. And what happens usually is they cut the mangrove root off to harvest the oysters. So that obviously damages the mangroves over the long term. And so by creating these racks, it not only creates a sustainable source of food, it creates a sustainable source of income. It also makes it safer for the women who usually collect them. The racks are usually established near to the villages, so they don't have to travel so far. So those are a number of the project activities that we're working on right now to help deal with the threats against mangroves. We're also trying to look into other activities like beekeeping and village savings and loans associations as well to support the reduction in use of mangroves. So to date, this project has taken place in over 120 villages. This is just project area 1. And we've done this through a large local team that we have. It's over 400 people that we've employed through the project so far. This is both short and long-term employment. So we have everybody from cluster coordinators that support the engagement with the different villages, all the way down to 274 what we call cook stove captains, which are active in leading the building of the cook stoves within each village. So it's quite a large team to work in such a large area to make sure that we can do what we need to do. So based on that, for a project like this, we really need an accurate mangrove. We really need an accurate mangrove model that's so how do we create our accurate mangrove models? We've heard earlier today, it's really quite difficult and it's not always easy. So West Africa Blue has a series of a detailed process that we go through to try and create the most accurate maps possible. And so we do that through benefiting from the machine learning aspect of Google Earth Engine. And it allows us to create the most accurate change models that we can. And we do that based on the involvement of Landsat and Sentinel satellite imagery, as well as using drone mapping and ground truthing to verify those points so we can increase the accuracy of our models. So this is where we start when we're creating our models. Just a very basic satellite imagery. This is a 30-meter resolution satellite. And the dark red is mangroves. And so that looks really great. We've done it for the whole country as well as for our project area. But now we need to understand, is that right? Is the map actually showing us mangroves? And so we need to be able to dig down and understand, get down to the pixel level as best we can to make sure that the models and the maps that we're creating are as accurate as possible. And to do that, we start to use drones. So this is the drone analysis that we've done. And this basically is just us standing out there flying drones over our project area. So it's quite time intensive, but the data is really worth it. So you can see on the left side of the picture, you can see the blurry part, that's the satellite imagery. And you can see on the right side of the picture, that's the drone imagery. So it's not like the satellite imagery is particularly bad, it's just not very good, it's just not very accurate. With the drone imagery, you can actually zoom into like the household hut level, so you can see what's going on, so to really dig into and understand what's happening in each pixel of that. And on the far side as well is just like a full picture about drone imagery, so you can see how clear it is that we're getting. So this is the first kind of level of accuracy creation that we do within our model, is we create drone maps over as much of the project area as we can, and these allow us to send that back up into the model to be used as training points for the model, so that the model, we can pick and choose different pixels and we can train the model to understand what different parts look like. As I mentioned, it is quite intensive, and to date we've got drone maps for about 40% of our project area, which is about 4,000 to 5,000 hectares that we have accurate drone maps for over the region. The next level that we use to gain accuracy for our models is geolocated photos. And again, this is just people out there. This is our local teams out there with cell phones with an app on it. They take photos. You can see the photo down there on the far right. They take a photo. It gets geotagged or geolocated. You can see in the top right. And that information then is sent up to us, and we can use then again to train the model around that and say, this is actually what is happening on the ground. And so we have a better understanding. And you can see the amount of geolocated photos that we have within our project area right now. So again, that represents teams on the ground going out there and taking the photos. And then the final level is people going out there and doing measurements on mangroves. And this helps us understand, is it mangroves? Is it algae mats? What kind of mangroves is it? So it really helps us understand the difference between the different stratifications and the different classifications that we're seeing. And so again, it's just people going out into the field and coming back with measurements, height measurements, those types of things for the mangroves. So all of that basically is a package that comes together and allows us to put that back up into the Google Earth engine and create the most accurate models that we can for mangrove change over time. So we can really understand what the deforestation rate is going on, and then we can accurately understand where we need to be working. So this is a photo of, it's not necessarily related to the mangrove model, but it is another technique that we use to help us better understand the mangrove ecosystems that we're working in. This is environmental DNA. Now, I'm not sure if everyone's heard it, but it's basically you take water and then you send it off for analysis, and the DNA in the water can tell you what species are within your mangrove system. So we use this alongside the regular trap cameras and just visual identification of the species. And it helps us understand what species are using the mangroves, as well as if there's any red listed or IUCN listed species that we need to be aware of within our project area. So it all sounds really great, and it's a really nice process that we have, but of course, there's challenges associated with this. Some of them we have better solutions for. Some of them we're still working on, but we've identified some challenges and some lessons learned coming out of this. So the first challenge that we have is called an NDVI index, which is a vegetation index. So basically, this is the satellite looking down saying, is this vegetation or is this not? Sorry, there's a technical issue. The computer says it wants to shut down. Yeah, it just says your energy saver turned on. I'm wondering if we can just fix that for a second. I can speak around this while we're doing this. So this vegetation index, as I said, the satellite says, is it vegetation, is it not? And because there's not a set threshold for what is vegetation and what not, sometimes areas that have been flooded are classified as water, or areas that have been recently degraded or cut down are classified as water. And so then we are losing the accuracy of the model, and we're losing areas that might have been cut. And so what we try to do is we try to go in and set a layer of what is water. So we try and mask that. And you can see a little bit that on the right-hand side. So again, it's just a way of increasing the accuracy of the model. It's not as precise as we would like, but we're working on it. Sorry. Sorry, can you make that come back? There we go. Thanks. There we go. One of the other challenges that we're facing with is degradation. And we're seeing this a lot around the region that we work in. We have a lot of small communities. A lot of the deforestation that's happening is small. It's small incremental. It's people going out and harvesting wood for fuel wood. And it doesn't always show up. It doesn't always show up on the satellite. So you can see it there a little bit on the far right. It's these small little patches that come up. And those small little patches, unfortunately, don't get caught by the satellite. And so they're not registering as being large-scale deforestation because they're not big enough yet. But just because they're not big enough for a satellite to pick up doesn't mean that they're not impacting the ecosystem. So again, the solution to that has been to work with communities or to have groups on the ground go out and just mark the areas that are being degraded because they're not identified as fully being deforested. Maybe the canopy hasn't come down completely yet. So it's quite a bit difficult to register that. It is a major source of threat against those that's not being picked up. One of the other challenges that we're working on, this is, we've got a number of different indices. So the satellite can see mangroves in a number of different ways. You can see the different colors that are coming up. They all have their uses. Some are better for other things or one thing or another. And so it's always difficult to understand which one to use. And so what we found is that actually if we layer the indices, if we sum them, and then put that back into the model, that allows us to adjust the accuracy level, and it gives us a better model altogether. So rather than just choosing one indice in which to see the satellite, to use the satellite, we actually use a layer of them. And then I talked about this a little bit earlier. This is about the stratification of mangroves. So when the satellite looks down, it sees vegetation, and it doesn't necessarily see the difference between like a tall mangrove and like a shrub mangrove, which has different results for carbon sequestration. And so if we're not able to see that, then again, our accuracy of our model and our accuracy of how much carbon is being sequestered is miscalculated. So again, the solution to that is we actually we send people out into the field for usually extended amounts of time, and we send them to as many points as we can to get these training points for the model to say, this is a pixel that has tall mangroves in it, or this is a pixel that has shrub mangroves in it. And then we'll use that to train the model so that it knows what to look for. And the only way we found around that right now is basically to have ground truthing and have people going out. And the last challenge that I want to speak about, and this one is something that's come up repeatedly today, is just there's a lack of data. There's a lack of data in the region. And there's a lack of data on soil carbon. There's a lack of data on biomass data. And so right now at the beginning, we were actually using field data from Nigeria to generate the biomass model. And Nigeria and Sierra Leone, they're close, but they're not the same. So those are some of the things that we're dealing with right now. One of the ways around that, again, comes back to drone mapping. So the map on the left, so this is the same, believe it or not, this is the same location. The map on the left is satellite data from 2018. The map on the right, or the photo on the right, is from our drone mapping from 2023. And the problem with this is not only that the satellite data is quite blurry, but it's the latest data that we have. So satellites for this region are only there in 2018, but we need accurate data as of last year, which is why we need to rely on drone data. Because if we're relying on 2018 maps, we're not seeing the deforestation and the degradation that has happened between now and then. So those are some of the issues we're working around. And again, one of the other solutions we found around this is we're just generating our own data. We are constantly sending field teams out to gather data on soil carbon and on biomass. And because of that, in both Sierra Leone and in Guinea, we've been able to establish regional equations for LOI and CHN, as well as regional biomass maps that we can now use. So this has taken an enormous amount of time, quite a bit of money as well, but now this data going forward will be made publicly available, so we can use it in the future, other projects can use it in the future, and hopefully this will allow projects to speed up, cost less, and allow the entry to smaller groups that might want to do blue carbon in this region. So the last slide is just the overall key lessons that we've learned so far. The first one is that terrestrial models are not suitable for blue carbon. They are not mangroves, but in the past, terrestrial models were all we've had. So it's great that we were using that, but we need more models that are based on mangrove specifically. High accuracy relies on having training and validation points, and that requires large-scale drone maps. If we don't have that, we're just not able to get the accuracy that we need just from the satellites that we have access to right now. We also need to very much engage with the communities to understand what has gone on historically, what did the forest look like historically, as well as to point us to areas that we might not be seeing, small-scale degradation, things like that going on. So the involvement of the community is really key for increasing our accuracy. And again, just to come back to it, there's an absolute critical need to have field data combined with remote sensing analysis. And this creates the highest accuracy that we can come out with. So we really need boots on the ground as well as eyes in the sky to create the most accurate mangrove models that we can. So thank you very much. Okay.
Merci beaucoup, Tania, pour cette présentation qui finalement a porté sur Sierra Leone et non la Guinée-Bissau, comme j'avais annoncé. Mais je pense que les éléments de menaces que vous avez cités sur les écosystèmes de mangroves, ça doit être des éléments partagés également avec la Guinée-Bissau. Et je pense que les défis que vous avez identifiés en termes d'utilisation des données pour le suivi de la biomasse au niveau des mangroves, ça doit être à quelque chose près. Les mêmes défis également pour la Guinée-Bissau. Donc, on vous remercie tous les trois pour ces présentations. Et peut-être, c'est vrai qu'on est en train de courir un peu derrière le temps. Sorry. Pardon? Je viens. Donc, je remercie les panélistes pour la présentation et je voudrais indiquer que pour peut-être introduire les discussions, je vais poser 2 questions, mais avant que vous ne répondiez, je vais laisser la parole à Mauritanie pour introduire en 1-2 minutes sur les herbiers marins au niveau de la Mauritanie. Alors, la question, c'est de savoir, avec tout ce que vous avez présenté, est-ce que vous identifiez des domaines spécifiques de recherche qui méritent d'être soutenus pour renforcer la qualité des données qui sont produites pour le suivi du crédit carbone. Et également sur le terrain, vous avez cité quelques défis sur le terrain pour la mise en œuvre, mais est-ce qu'en dehors de ça, est-ce que vous avez d'autres défis, d'autres risques de terrain que vous pourrez partager avec nous dans la mise en œuvre, donc des projets carbone, peut-être que vous l'avez développé. Mais peut-être avant que vous ne répondiez, je vais laisser la parole à Arsène de la Mauritanie pour nous introduire un peu sur les biens, vraiment en 2 minutes parce que le temps est complètement parti.
Merci beaucoup. Hello, everybody. My name is Hassan Mohamed Al-Hassan. I'm from Mauritania. So I am a conservationist in the Parc National de Bandarguin, as well as a postdoc researcher at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. So I worked intensively on the intertidal system, especially the seagrass functioning, as well as the mangroves in Guinea-Bissau. So we are now in the process of starting assessing the blue carbon in Bandarguin. And so recently I ran to a paper on I think in the Journal of Coastal Conservation on the blue carbon potential in West Africa. And there as well, the bandarge, the elephant in the room was ignored somehow, despite that they also considered seagrass in that paper. I think some of us here might know about that paper. And so that's made me think that there is something that we need to discuss and to consider in the future. Because we are talking about blue carbon in West Africa, and one of the largest carbon stocks in the whole region is in bandarge and the seagrass beds there. I know that we are talking mostly here about mangroves, but we should not ignore that elephants. And in fact, so I got across today few messages that I've been hearing over the last few days. And for me, they need to be discussed and also in the future dialogue with most of the stakeholders. The first one I got, seagrass is not very important if we talk about the blue carbon credits. The second one is that you need to degrade your habitats first, restore it in order to benefit from credits. So that for me kind of an odd messages. So I think one could argue that it's actually against the Paris agreements. So you are punishing people who conserve. You are punishing people who conserve their carbon away from the atmosphere and rewarding other people. So I mean, that's something we need to really discuss in the future. So my case is about the bandarge blue carbon. We start the process in 2017 with the direction of the bandarge, with support of Bacomap, the trust fund, as well as with collaboration with the University of Groningen and the Aveiro University in Portugal. What we did is so far is scientifically talking. We identified that the predominant carbon in bandarge is actually autochthone. That means it's locally in situ produced. So that's the first criteria that's blue carbon is considering. So we meet that criteria. The second one, we made some kind of spatial assessment of the blue carbon in the area, and the average is like 27 mega per hectare. And if we take into consideration the total area of seagrass in the bandarge that we just measured using a sonar and multi-beam sonars in the system with high-resolution satellite imagery, we came to more than 1,600 square kilometers of seagrass beds in bandarge, both intertidal and subtidal. If you multiply that one, we came the second in the world, competing with the Everglades in the States. So we came after the Great Barrier Reef. So we are globally talking. And now here in West Africa at home, we are being kind of ignored. That's kind of, for me, a very, very, something that we need to consider in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Merci beaucoup, Ahmed, pour ce point important. Je pense que et on ne va pas attendre forcément que ça se dégrade avant de recourir au crédit carbone. Donc, vous pouvez être rassuré par rapport à ça. Et donc, si nos panélistes veulent répondre à la série de deux questions que j'ai posées rapidement avant qu'on ne donne la parole à la salle. Je rappelle la question, c'est les défis sur le plan scientifique et également les risques sur le terrain pour la mise en œuvre du crédit carbone. Tania, vous voulez commencer? Oui, malheureusement.
So in answer to the question of where do I think we should be focusing our research on, when I was thinking about it, I came up with a number. I came up with like 4 different areas that I think we should be researching on, but I'll keep the answer to 2 just because we're short on time. I mentioned it in my presentation, but I think degradation is extremely important and is not taken into account in the methodologies that we have so far. I think it's affecting the amount of carbon that we're measuring or that we're validating, and I think it's creating inaccuracies in our models. And then the other one that I think would be really interesting is soil erosion. Right now, what we're seeing is what we call carbon bombs. So it's these huge chunks of soil that are falling off of the banks because the mangroves have been cut back. And so the difference is that it's not a very kind of gradual amount of loss of carbon. It's immediate and it's a lot, and it's not being taken into account as well in the methodologies that we have. So I think degradation and soil erosion in that way are probably 2 of the areas that I would like to see research being focused on in the future. So thanks.
And just to add to the question about the challenges, I think for me, from our perspective, I think mapping seagrass and salt marshes are more challenging than mapping mangroves. So it's actually one of the requests of our end users. Can you map seagrass? I mean, we could, but very challenging because it demands other types of data. It demands people on the ground. So having a map of seagrass, like over large areas, it's very difficult from a technical perspective, especially using satellite data, especially here in West Africa, where the water, it's often turbid, so you cannot see much using the regular data. So that's one of the challenges that we particularly encounter when talking about blue carbon. We tend to focus on mangrove because it's much easier comparatively to mapping seagrass and salt marshes. But we do have in our group people that work primarily with seagrass and salt marshes. They're using different data, and we're trying to integrate everything together, but it's very challenging.
If I look at the carbon projects that we are developing, I see two major gaps. And it is, what is the soil organic carbon? How should we estimate this? What should be the right values to use? That's one that is crucial. Then what I also see in the methodologies, there is a demand, that a requirement that we should distinguish between allogenous and autochthonous carbon. And how can we do that? What are we need to do of field research to do that? And this is, from the carbon projects, it's also two very important things to add on what you have mentioned. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Morten. Et je pense que nous allons prendre rapidement quelques questions dans la salle. Il nous reste à peine 10 minutes. Donc, oui, Madame Dofi, je vous inscris. Une autre dame. Et puis deux messieurs. Alors, monsieur le micro. Il y a beaucoup de messieurs. Non, je pense que je vais donner la parole à notre ami de la Gambie et puis au fond de la salle. Ah. Là-bas, c'est la Guinée. Non, je parle. Ah, là-bas, c'est la Guinée. Ok. Donc, on commence par la dame. Nicolas, s'il te plaît. Commence par la dame. Ouais.
Merci. Je m'appelle Thérèse, vous savez, je travaille. Vous savez, je travaille avec Partenariat international dans un programme Mangrove Capital Africa qui s'occupe de la conservation et restauration des mangroves. Bon, j'ai une question et une recommandation. Je commencerai par la recommandation qui peut être la suite des défis. Je salue les différentes présentations. Et je pense que la planification devait être intégrée beaucoup dans les projets carbone parce que dans le passé, on a eu à faire des restaurations qui n'ont pas marché sur de mangroves parce que tout simplement, toutes les zones déclarées et dégradées ne sont pas restaurables. Et après des années, on se rend compte qu'on a fait des efforts inutiles. Et deuxièmement, dans nos efforts à l'interne de mise à l'échelle d'une méthodologie de restauration écologique communautaire, on a fait les efforts d'identifier les zones dégradées. Bien sûr, c'est avec Global Mangrove Watch satellitaire qui ont besoin d'être encore revérifiées sur terrain. Mais il y a certaines données qui ne nous encouragent pas à faire des restaurations à grande échelle. Par exemple, en Gambie ou au Sénégal, où on voit qu'il y a des gains, où on voit que la dégradation ne continue pas, il y a plus d'espace pour cette restauration à grande échelle. Bien sûr, on a besoin de revérifier ça, mais ça donne une indication que ça doit faire partie des planifications pour que ça ne soit pas encore des grands projets qui vont échouer plus tard. Voilà. Ma question, je ne suis pas spécialiste de projet carbone, mais je voudrais juste demander, est-ce que les restaurations ont été faites dans les années antérieures, parce qu'il y a des pays qui ont fait beaucoup d'efforts dans la restauration. Quelle est la possibilité que ces restaurations peuvent faire partie des projets carbone? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Vous avez l'avantage du premier intervenant. Donc, je vais demander aux autres d'être vraiment précis et concis pour qu'on aille vite parce que le temps est passé. Nicolas, madame derrière.
Moi, j'avais une question les satellites et les cartes. Je pense que les technologies ont beaucoup évolué. Les technologies ont beaucoup évolué, c'est de moins en moins cher. Et il y a un petit peu un paradoxe avec ce que vous dites, que quand même, ça demande du temps, c'est cher. Donc, est-ce que ce n'est pas aussi parce que chaque projet garde ses data au lieu de les mettre open access et public?
Merci beaucoup, madame. La Gambie? Non, on avait retenu 2 dames. Oui, la Gambie. Oui.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. My question goes to West African Groups quickly.
Please, could you use the mic?
So I just want to find out what are the mode of operations, because it's not very clear to me. Who do you work with, in particular in Sierra Leone? I want to come.
La Guinée?
Je suis Mamadou Diawara de la République de Guinée. Donc, je travaille pour l'ONG Guinée Écologie. Je remercie tous les intervenants. C'est un sujet important qui mérite une attention. Thérèse a déjà posé ma première question. Ma deuxième question, c'est par rapport à la maîtrise de... Il y a des zones que je connais comme chez nous, qui sont des zones très proches des grandes villes. Les pressions sont souvent externes. Est-ce que dans les évaluations, on essaye de maîtriser ces pressions et de ne pas simplement se concentrer sur les périmètres sur lesquels on travaille et on évalue, alors que les problèmes peuvent être déplacés? Est-ce qu'on fait allusion à cela dans les évaluations que vous faites sur les crédits carbone? Merci.
D'accord, merci beaucoup. Déjà, je présente mes excuses parce qu'on ne pourra pas prendre tous les intervenants. Vous pouvez répondre aux questions comme vous le sentez. Morten, qui commence? Je dois rappeler les questions ou c'est bon? On a juste 5 minutes pour répondre aux questions.
Yeah, I think I am for the first and the last one. And if I understand the question correctly, it is for if you have done restoration also already, can it then be counted? Was that the question? I hope that you have mentioned it during the process with the villages you have been working, that you have carbon considered. And it is part of the consultation process that we in advance make a consultation, and we mention it for the carbon credits have been involved, integrated into it. There is, if you look at the different standards, it is actually different. And directly in the mangrove methodology that are used in the gold standard, they have an option that in case you have not done this, there have to be a specific clarification on it. That was an answer to your question. And the man with a nice colored shirt there. If I understand it, it is you are very close to the cities and so on. What if there is something that is going to happen? And what we have we mainly have it for if there is a nature reason for like flooding and so on, it can be what shall we happen there. Then there is established in the carbon projects, we have to put aside 10 to 20% into a buffer. And this can handle part of it. So like in Vera and the other standard, they have a huge reserve of credits not used. So if there's some disasters are coming in, then we can use this. So it can be credits from another country. But it doesn't help if it's manned reasons and manned degradation that are pushing this, because it's something you have to handle before.
Merci beaucoup, Morton. Je vous suggère, si vous avez des compléments, vous le faites, mais je vous suggère plutôt de répondre à la question de l'accès aux données. Si vous avez des éléments, si les données sont en open access, est-ce que ça ne va pas faciliter un peu le travail? Si vous avez des éléments de réponse par rapport à ça, je vous suggère de répondre plutôt à ça pour nous permettre de gagner en temps, parce qu'on est...
Yeah, answer your question about data sharing. Due to constraints of time, I didn't speak about this in my presentation, but for our group, for this project, the shareability of the data is a great aspect. It's actually a requirement of our NAP proposal that all the data has to be available to the public freely. So everything that we produce will be eventually delivered to the end users and then trickle down to people on the ground and in these communities. We've done this before with other countries in Gabon, Liberia. All the data that we produce is shared through articles and also directly. So we can upload this in a portal and everybody has the ability to download and access to it. It doesn't stay in-house, so we try to share and be as thorough as possible.
In response to time, maybe I'll just answer the question from the Gambia, I believe it was, about who we work with specifically in Sierra Leone. So we work with a number of organizations, so within the government.
Can you speak on the mic, please? On the mic, yeah. It doesn't work?
So within Sierra Leone, we work with the Ministry of Environment and a number of different agencies under that, including the NPAA, which is the National Protected Area Authority, among others. We also work with CSSL, which is the local NGO focusing on biodiversity. We work with NAMITI, which is an NGO as well, focusing on social justice and environmental justice. And we work, of course, with the paramount chiefs, and then the different levels of community under that, so the mayors and the section chiefs as well. So we work with a number of different layers within Sierra Leone. But yeah, I can answer more if you want later. Thanks. Absolutely. So yes, you can speak later.
C'est bon, merci beaucoup, madame, merci aux panélistes. Je pense que le temps est parti, donc je ne vais pas prendre le risque de résumer encore les interventions, mais je pense que nous avons eu des droits de présentation très instructifs qui nous ont permis, dans un premier temps avec Porten, de voir un peu les normes au niveau global et les défis que nous avons à les respecter dans le développement des projets carbone. Ensuite, les défis notamment en termes de données, et nous avons pour cela exploré les données satellitaires, les données de drones, un certain nombre d'informations qu'on peut avoir pour gérer, même s'il y a toujours des défis de capacité pour déployer tous ces outils-là. Je pense qu'on peut remercier nos panélistes pour ces interventions et nous dire que nous avons encore 2-3 jours, donc sentez-vous à l'aise de continuer à échanger avec eux dans les couloirs sur les sujets spécifiques que vous avez. Merci beaucoup à vous et à très bientôt pour la suite de cette émission. Ah, OK. Quelques informations.
S'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît, really, we do congratulate this chairman. He has been great because we were following him. We had so many plans, plan A, plan B, and we do apologize because of the inconvenience at the kickoff. And it was really successful because, as you see, you have been getting good delivery. In a short note, we have to dash to EBAP because we have some side events in the afternoons. And the beauty of these side events is lunch is provided there as well. And because you are accustomed to hotels' food, I think it's good to change now, dash there, get local food somehow, and it can help for the side event to be on time. Thank you very much indeed, and congratulations once more for the chairman and for your panelists.
J'ai vu la photo, j'ai dit c'est le mec. Oh, félicitations, je suis très honoré, très content. On a besoin de ça. Oh, il y a le dans le japonais.
That I have seen myself. Okay, take no. Let me have